Okay.
All right. So David's been to Gath before. Remember Gath? Gath was the place where who came from?
Goliath.
Goliath and his family. And so he went there once before with a sword after he had asked for the showbread. And he went there, and then he feigned madness, remember? He pretended like he was mad, and they let him go. So the king of Gath said, do I need any more crazy people around here? Let him go. Well, David now decides it's wise to go back there again. And why? Because he's fearful of Saul. That's surprising, isn't it? David's faith is very strong. He certainly would be one of the great men of faith in the entirety of the Bible, and yet fear, after a while, wore him down.
Because God had seen him through everything.
Well, we've looked at all of these situations where he knew that the Lord would avenge him. He knew he was going to be the king of Israel. Samuel had already told him that. He knew that he just needed to wait for God's timing to do this. He knew that Saul had, apologized a couple times to him. Not that that means a lot, but he certainly knew that God avenged Nabal with, and that he received Abigail from that. And then one day he wakes up and he goes, I think I'm just going to go to Gath and I'm going to hang out with the Philistines.
That's like we do when we try to do it ourselves.
Well, he sounds like he's really tired.
Tired.
And he's very depressed.
Depressed, discouraged,
Yeah.
fearful.
How many years had
Kinda
it
lost
been that
faith
Saul
a
had been
little.
chasing after him?
Saul will have chased after him for 10 years.
And he'd like to live in a building. He's probably been camping out the whole time. And
He's just reached a place here at this point where God is going to.
And his family isn't with him, right?
Well, yeah, they are going to be with him here. Well, let's look at this a little bit, more. So David,
Abigail for sure.
she was the Carmelitas, remember?
Yes.
But remember, the important thing is that David knows that he's not going to die until he becomes the king of Israel, and yet he's fearful that he is going to die. So that's the important thing for our lesson, for this lesson, that we see a weakness in David.
But there's a heavy responsibility on him at the same time. I mean, if you know you're going to be king, but you have all these people that are probably depending on you for their survival, I don't know, it just seems like
I think it's a lot of what like Francie was talking about: discouragement, despair, depression, exhaustion. We don't know physically what he was feeling like at this point. I mean, his physical.
Do you think he lost his faith?
No, I don't think he lost his faith at this, but I think that fear overtook his faith, and those are two separate things. You can still have your faith. But when you are fearful and you allow that fear to overtake it, that's when things happen. It doesn't mean you lose your faith.
Right.
It simply means that you allow fear to overtake it. And that's where David is going to be. Now, we know that he's going to come back around later on, but he's going to go through this journey, this valley, before he does that.
in a waiting period.
Pardon me?
When you're in a waiting period and
Yeah.
you're trying to maintain momentum and it's not...
And if this is
Yeah.
so let's say that when this happens, because he's in this country for 16 months. Let's just say we're about year 8. He's been waiting a while.
Yeah.
He's been waiting a while for this to all come about. So David said in his heart, "Now I shall perish someday by the hand of Saul. There's nothing better for me." Really? Because you're going to be the king. But that I should just speedily escape to the land of the Philistines. Remember, too, that the Philistines are lifelong enemies of Israel. They are the arch enemies, if you would call it that, of Israel. He's going over. You can't go any further into enemy territory than to go into where the Philistines are. And Saul will despair of me to seek me any more in any part of Israel, so I shall escape out of his hand. Remember earlier he had talked about, you're forcing me to lose my inheritance. I'm not going to be in the land anymore. I'm going to be, people are saying, let him go serve other gods. And that's exactly where David turns. At this point, he leaves the land of Israel and steps into the land of the enemy. And so then I shall escape out of his hand. So David arose and went with the 600 men. So he takes them all with him. Was it, you just mentioned the responsibility of all of these men. At least they were in the land of Israel previously. Now he's taking 600 men with him. And so, let me see, I lost my place. Then David arose and went with 600 men who were with him to Achish, the son of Moab, king of Gath. So David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, each man with his household. That's a lot of people. And David has got both wives with him. Ahinoam, the Jezreelitess, and Abigail from Carmel, I'm going to call her that, who was Nabal's widow. We just talked about her. And it was told to Saul that David had fled to Gath, so he sought him no more. So, exactly what David said. If I leave, then Saul will despair of me and will no longer seek me anymore. That's exactly what happened. Saul cannot go into the land of the Philistines. So, David is right. He's not going to follow him into that place. Verse 5, then David says to Achish, now, if I have found favor in your eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country, that I may dwell there. For why should your servant dwell in the royal city with you? So David, in his typical humble way, is saying, oh, to dwell in your city is too high of an honor for someone like me. So maybe you could just give me some land in the country, and I can just go and be out of your hair and not bother you. So my question to you would be, why would the king of Gath even consider that?
He's the enemy of, the king of Gath hates Saul, so.
Good. All right. So they have a common enemy.
Yeah.
They have a common, and David isn't coming empty-handed. David's got 600 warriors with him too that could be helpful in the land. And the king of Gath would rather have David as a friend than to have David as an enemy.
How did the Arabs word that? Any enemy of yours is a friend of mine?
Something weird like that. And that's exactly what this king is looking for. So David wants just a little bit of a piece of land. Now, so Achish gave him Ziklag that day. Therefore, Ziklag has belonged to the kings of Judah to this day. So Joshua 15 and Joshua 19, when the land is being divided up, Ziklag goes actually to the tribe of Judah. Later on, it actually goes to the tribe of Simeon, but it goes to the tribe of Judah, and nobody ever does anything with it. Nobody ever dwells there. And so the Philistines end up taking that back, although at one point it had been divvied up into the land of Judah. Go ahead.
I'm just curious. I'm looking at your map. And
Yes.
It's the southern portion. So is it more desert?
It would be down into the, yes, more into the desert land, the country land. And if you can see here from the map that she's talking about, I've circled Gath and Ziklag so that you can see they're a pretty good distance apart. They're not right on top of each other. This little town of Ziklag that he gives him is a little bit further on down, but you can see that it's also in that area of Judah. That would have one time been the area of Judah, although it's now under Philistine rule. All right, so he gives him that little piece of land. Now, the time when David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was 1 full year and 4 months. So he's going to be in Philistine for 16 months. That's a pretty good amount of time to sort of take a respite from running after Saul. Now, David and his men went up. So now all of these 600 men that David have, they're in Ziklag. They're all there, and they go up and they raid the Gershites, the Gerzites, and the Amalekites. And the answer to why David would do that is in these next few sentences. For those nations were the inhabitants of the land from of old, as you go to Shur, even as far as the land of Egypt. If you go to Exodus chapter 17, or you go to Joshua chapter 13, you will read that God told the children of Israel, I'm going to give you some land. This is going to be your land. But when you go in there, what were they to do?
Take out everybody.
Take out everybody.
Yeah.
He told them, go in there and completely take out the people that were in there before. And so, did they do that?
No.
And what happened?
They were perpetual enemies.
That's right. They were perpetually a thorn in the side of Israel all of that time because they did not do what God said. People look at that and they go, God said to go into a nation and destroy all the men and the women and the children and completely clean that land out? How could God do that? Why would God do that? Why would he?
You can tell because the consequences were they had to fight these people off forever and ever
And these
Yeah.
people also bring false gods and idol worship, and they come in there. They create a lot of issues for Israel as far as idolatry. It's one of the reasons why, later on they're going to be taken into Babylon and stuff, is because they get infiltrated with this outside idol worship. And so God tells them what he wants them to do to the people that are in the land, and they do not do it. And it's these people that we just read. These are the ones that they were to clean out when they came in, and they didn't do it. So, in David's defense, he's doing something that was supposed to have been done to the enemies of Israel in earlier days. It isn't just randomly picking people and ransacking them or raiding them for their booty or whatever, for plunder. That he's actually going into the areas that God told them to go in there. However, did God direct David to do this?
No.
Doesn't appear that he's doing it. This just appears to be a type of, I hate to use the word, but it's a kind of a conspiracy that David is sort of dealing with, and we'll see as we go along why that is. So verse 9, wherever David attacked the land, he left neither man nor woman alive. So he went in and just wiped out areas. And he took away the sheep and the oxen and the donkeys and the camels and the apparel. So anything that was worth anything that had value to it, and returned and came back to Achish, the king. So he would bring all of these animals and all of this stuff and anything that was of any value, and he would lay it at the feet of Achish. And Achish would say, well, where have you made a raid today? And David would say, against the southern area of Judah, or against the southern area of the Jehemelites, I don't know how to say that, or against the southern area of the Kenites. You know what? That's not where David was. Because those areas were Israel. Those were Israel areas. David had not gone in and attacked the Israelites. David had gone in and attacked the enemies of Israel. But when he would bring the goods back and lay them at the feet, and the king would say, give me a report. Where'd you go? What'd you do? David would tell them, I wiped out this town of Israel. I wiped out this town of Israel. I did this, and here's all of the goods. David would save neither man nor woman alive. Why would you want to leave them alive? Well, they could have been slaves. You could have brought them back and they could have been slave labor. To bring news to Gath, saying, lest they should inform on us, saying, thus David did. So what it's saying there is that the reason David killed everyone was so they couldn't tattle on him.
the witnesses.
The witnesses to this. So David is killing people so they won't tell the king what he's doing. That he's not attacking Israel. That he's not building up the Philistines' land territory in those areas that he's telling them. But instead, he's going against those who probably, I don't know this for a fact, but probably were somewhat friendly to Achish, I'm going to guess. At least, they had the common enemy of Israel, let's put it that way. So it says here, and thus was his behavior all the time he dwelt in the country of the Philistines. And how long was that? 16 months. He dwells in the land of the Philistines, and 16 months. David goes out and slaughters villages and territories and lands, kills every man and woman, and brings all the bounty back and lays it at the feet of the king of the Philistines. Let that sink in for a minute. It's pretty amazing to think that this is where our David is at this point. So Achish believed David, saying, "Oh, he has made his people Israel utterly abhor him. Therefore, he will be my servant forever." So Achish is buying into all of this. Achish is saying, well, Israel will never take him back because he's gone in and raided all of their places. They're going to hate him. Oh, David and his 600 men are going to live here. We're going to get rich. He's going to take care of all of this for me. This is a good thing for me.
But he's literally clearing out enemies,
Yeah.
He's clearing out enemies.
Philistines.
He's clearing out enemies of Israel.
Yeah.
That
Not Philistines.
they are
Oh, yeah.
And the others. So
yeah, they are.
He was also supposed to destroy their animals, which he didn't do.
So I didn't print it out to you. I'm just going to wait because we've gone over enough material today. But I want to just read this to you because chapter 28, the next one that we go to, that I didn't print out for you, the first 2 verses of that literally tie in with this story, and it's one of those weird breaks where where scripture breaks at a place where there's still a little bit of information that needs to go. And so if I wait 2 weeks before we go back to this again, I just want this to be the little tag on, and then we'll go over it in 28. And it says, "Now it happened in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together to war to fight with Israel." Okay, so the Philistines are going to fight with Israel. And Achish says to David, "You assuredly know that you will go out with me to battle, you and all of your men." So you guys are going to come and battle against Israel. Now, all of you, come on, because we're going to go. And David said to Achish, "Surely you know what your servant can do. You've seen what I do, right? You know what I can do." And Achish said to David, "Therefore I will make you one of my chief guardians forever." So David's backed himself now into a corner. He's gonna have to go out and fight with Achish, the king of the Philistines, against his own people, the ones that he is going to be the king of. Look what he's done. And how Achish has fallen.
So weird.
It's kind of sad. I'm sorry to have to leave